Hi. Let's talk about what happened in Kalou, the legalities and illegalities. We'll be speaking to someone who was here just a week and a half ago. Yeah, feels like a week and a half ago. He is the head of legal redress and, the head of redress and legal affairs, yes, at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. His name is Cyrus Mwaweyu, and we'll be discussing the legalities, illegalities, and the road ahead for Kalou, what we witnessed, where it falls under the law, who is supposed to prosecute, who is supposed to also essentially hold to account those who are supposed to prosecute. Those and more questions. Cyrus, welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Happy to be here.
Nakumbuka tunaanzanga na quote of the day. So we'll share the quote of the day with you and you can say if you agree or disagree.
Today's quote is a West African proverb. And it reads, when the rhythm changes, the dance must also change. How does that speak to you?
I identify with that. I'm not a very good dancer. I'm not even sure I know how to dance. But essentially, it's about the times. When something has shifted significantly, I think we are all duty-bound to respond to that change.
Yeah,
so that we are not dancing out of tune or out of rhythm. Just ensuring harmony with what is happening around us.
Indeed. Now, Cyrus, when it comes to issues of human rights,
Yes.
the commission was established primarily, in fact, human rights bodies all over the world are to see that there are no excesses and violations of human rights, mostly by the state and state agencies, right?
Yeah.
Now, we have been seeing, the rise of violence and non-protection of people's civil liberties and rights. And we discussed that the last time you were here. Now, in this particular by-election in Kalou, we saw violations. Violations, whether it's by people who are in official gear, in some instances, and in others, in people who are not in official gear. Okay? People who could not be identified as state officers, but there were violations of their rights. People, the DCP team is complaining today, and others, there were some people who were denied the right to present themselves to the polling station to vote. Others who had turned up, but they also faced some level of violence, physical, mental, and so on and so forth. As a commission, is what you have from your own observation, what you saw in Kalou, strong enough to raise your radar, to raise your antenna?
The starting point is that it's not really about the strength. For as long as a violation has been reported, irrespective of the quantity in terms of the numbers, it should concern not only the commission, but everyone, because we are all in the same country. We all want to be enjoying our rights. But I want to agree with you first that, human rights is essentially the state bears the primary responsibility. So people are validly and legitimately in expressing their concerns and calling on the government to do what it's supposed to do to protect them. When such things happen or they are reported, whether there are allegations or issues of fact, it's upon the state to conduct impartial investigations and ensure that there is accountability. First is to identify who the perpetrators are and then take action against them. I believe that's one of the ways in which the people would have some confidence that the rule of law is practically working for them and the government is actually protecting and responding to their needs.
Okay. That confidence bit, we'll park it and come back down. We'll go to the fact that when we can identify a wrongdoing or who is doing it, becomes much easier to follow up and seek for justice. In the case of Kalou yesterday, it was a lot of masked men or number plates covered, like smeared in mud, which is new, to be honest. I'd seen taking off the number plate. It seems we're getting more and more ingenious with every day. So number plates are covered, faces are covered, balaclavas are worn, armed men with guns or with tear gas canisters. Actually, that was another new thing. Now, I don't think ordinary criminals have tear gas canisters. How does the state investigate itself?
Well, in a functional democracy, and where the rule of law is respected. And Kenya prides itself as a country that is governed by the rule of law. It is expected that whenever there are infractions of the law, whenever there are reports of violations, they will be investigated irrespective of who is the target of the allegations and who is reporting. The law is meant to protect everyone. Everyone is entitled to that equal benefit of the law. So it shouldn't be that investigations should only happen when the perpetrators are known or they belong to a certain status or category. In fact, the law is there to protect everyone, and most of the most vulnerable, those who do not have the muscle, the resources to protect themselves. Because as a country, the citizens have ceded a lot of their sovereignty to the state, and they expect in return that when they make these reports, then the state should be able to pick some of these things up and investigate irrespective of who is involved. Now, if you look at the constitutional architecture, I believe part of the reasons why there was civilian oversight or recommendations for civilian oversight that were oversight over the police that were actually operationalized and provided for in law, and institutions, oversight mechanisms have been set in place to take care of some of these concerns. Because it's possible that there would be cases or there would be complaints that necessarily are raised against public officials and others that are also raised against civilians. So the expectation is that these oversight mechanisms would also oversight the police, and it's provided for in the Constitution and our laws.
Now, again, let me hang on to like the little details. You said, when something has been reported, an investigation should follow. In a case like yesterday in Kalou, when a random masked man fires a tear gas canister into a crowd, it's very likely that no one will report the incident, because reporting to who, right? You run because it's human nature, unless you can somehow withstand the smell of tear gas. You run, you disperse, and they have achieved whatever it is that they wanted, which was essentially to cause a disruption of some sort. And there's news coverage on it. It's there. It's caught on video. When does the police service initiate the investigations? When things are clear as day? Or is there some requirement that there be a report? It's not, if a crime didn't happen if it wasn't reported.
Not necessarily. We've seen cases where I think there was a reported raid in a hotel in Parklands, I believe, and it was also captured on camera. There were recordings, and after a while, there were reports that the people had been either neutralized or affected, or they are being sought after. So it's very possible. And now, speaking for the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, from a complaints perspective, we do not necessarily have to act on a complaint for as long as the issue has been brought to our attention, not necessarily by a person who walks in. The law allows what we call own initiative investigations, for the reason that things could happen and they may not necessarily be reported. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve investigations. It doesn't mean that there were no violations. And it does also not mean that there are no leads that can be pursued. And we've done that as a national human rights institution in matters human rights, where necessarily no one has walked into the offices, no one has called, no one has complained, but we felt it was important. We've also at times picked issues from the media and pursued them for investigations and redress.
Because I was going to ask, if people don't report, you still interact with material that shows you there is either outright violations or cause for the commission to document and start, investigations of your own before then passing on that to the investigating authorities. What is the biggest worry that the commission has at the moment, given that I feel like the documented violations keep being, that's a conversation that keeps happening and circling, but we don't get past a certain point where we actually prosecute or something happens. In the last 3 months of campaigns in Kalou, what is the biggest worry that the commission has presently? And I'm saying this just to layer in what came from the Kofi Annan report.
I think one of the concerns that we should all have as a country is how free and fair our elections are. And we all appreciate that we are moving into general elections here next year, in just a few months. And the extent to which Kenyans would confidently be exercising their right to vote, because the right to vote is equally a democratic right. It's a right that everyone has.
Yes.
Even those who want to offer themselves for some of these elective positions, the confidence that you can run through that process and emerge as a winner or lose and lose fairly. I think that is something that should concern all of us.
Okay.
And it's a contribution by many actors, including even the citizens themselves. How do we vote? Do we respect the rights of other people to vote? Do we respect the secrecy of that ballot, including even the candidates themselves? How do we conduct ourselves around elections? Is it calling out? Is it issue-based? Is it ideologies focused? Even the political parties themselves, how fair, how democratic are the party primaries, the processes leading even to the candidates that ultimately are in the final contest. And even that voting process itself, how prepared shall we be? What mechanisms do we put in place to secure, especially the ballot itself, but also the people who really want to exercise that right. So it's a myriad of many things and a number of concerns that cut across and that affect necessarily everyone in the country.
Does the commission have some quasi-judicial powers?
Yes.
To what extent?
So if you look at it, historically, the commission used to have a tribunal. The tribunal would sit, take evidence, evaluate, and pass an award, which, for lack of a better term, is almost the equivalent of a judgment. And then the person would have the role of escalating that and taking it up with the formal judiciary for enforcement as an order of the court. The current statutory framework provides for the power to adjudicate human rights complaints or human rights violations. Adjudicate basically connotes some quasi-judicial powers because you have to hear and you have to determine. So I would say that the commission has quasi-judicial powers.
Okay. So if it comes to your attention that there's been a violation of rights, and especially that involves some criminal activity, physical, beating, torture, and such, what powers do you have?
So a number of powers. The first one being the power to, of course, receive that complaint, and not just receive that complaint, but also act on own initiative and be able to investigate. So the second power is the power to investigate. In the context of conducting those investigations, the commission has the power to call for evidence, call for documents, including issuance of summons. And the summons are basically to one who has some piece of information or some evidence that is critical to aid in the investigations, and that is a power that the commission can also deploy. When all is said and done, then the follow-up actions, because it's not enough to document, it's not enough to keep receiving the reports.
True.
But what further actions will be taken? So the commission also has that power to look into what would be appropriate in terms of remedy for the violations that are received or reported or documented by the commission. Approaching it from a human rights perspective, the mantra has been that for every violation, there must be a remedy. So once all this is done, ultimately, what does it lead to in terms of the practical remedy to the victim of that violation? And also broadly, looking at the environment that facilitates or allows some of these violations to continue. So the wider conversations around advocacy and rule of law requirements and what really should be done to ensure that we all get to enjoy the rights that the Constitution has given us.
Okay. So remedy to the victim. And what about the perpetrator?
If you look at justice, it cuts both ways. You can approach it from a criminal perspective where you are looking at criminal liability in terms of arrest, prosecution, and possible conviction, of course, depending on the evidence of the perpetrator.
Okay.
That, to some people, would also be justice, because there are those who would just say that I need action in that criminal sense taken against the people who committed these violations. But then there are also those other civil remedies where one says that as you pursue that person for the offense or for the crime that they committed, which is basically seen as a debt to the society or to the state. So as they pay their debt to the society and the state, can they also pay their specific debt to the direct victim of those violations? And that is where now conversations around direct compensation to that victim also come into play. Again, approaching it holistically from a remedy and justice perspective, you can also look at guarantees of non-repetition. What really needs to change? What structures are we putting into place to ensure that these violations do not keep recurring?
Okay.
Yeah, so there are different remedies that would amount to justice, including also rehabilitation, restitution to the extent possible, depending, of course, on the context and the violations that have been reported or documented.
Okay, I was leading somewhere. Of course, you could tell. So now that we have established that you have so much power and strong teeth, violations happened in Kalou over very many days. Let's just stick to yesterday. All right? Journalists were accosted by unknown people, unknown so far. Some traders in this town lost their wares, okay? So their right to property was violated, okay? The commission has the power to investigate, to summon. There's a person who's responsible for ensuring security of the people in this area. That's the local police commander. So I'm assuming that the commission can now summon the local OCS and OCPD and the county police boss to answer to questions of what happened. I'm assuming that the commission can go to the NTSA portal and see this car registration is registered to so and so. And if they don't find that record, they can summon NTSA and ask, how is this number plate on a vehicle on our roads, right? In a bid to identifying the owner of the motor vehicle that was involved in the violation of rights, right? Thereafter, then we shall come and say, the victims, this is it, and the perpetrators, this is it. When will that begin?
So in terms of monitoring, let me first indicate that the commission has been monitoring. Even as of this minute, we have a team on the ground, and they are monitoring and documenting what is happening or their observations, and that would also inform some of the interventions that the commission would be looking into. So it's a process that is continuous for the commission. The commission is known for documenting violations around elections, and that it has done consistently for quite a number of general elections, including the most recent. And the reports of the commission have also been used to seek accountability in different forums, including even in litigation. So it is something that is continuous. And as I've already indicated, I know for a fact that there's a team that is already on the ground and monitoring. And
You've not answered the question.
I'm on the action.
no, that's the starting point. The starting point is you document. The documentation is what now informs further intervention.
So when do we expect the commission, from understanding your own internal processes,
Yes.
understanding the team on the ground and how far they've gone so far, maybe, when should we expect someone says, I want to hear the OCS has been summoned by the commission to answer to these violations. I want to hear the commission has identified the owner of this black Prado that was there, and they have summoned the owner to come and say, why was your car in Kalou and what were you doing?
What were you doing there?
And why did you carry people?
Even to add to what Eric is saying, any process, the effectiveness of any process is that it's time bound. It's not open. So maybe make us understand with all the questions that we're asking here, what is the time prescribed by KNCHR in terms of pursuit of these processes that we've outlined here? Because we could say, you're well within, I don't know how much time frame, and 2 years from now, we're still investigating a matter that happened, God knows when.
So broadly, again, and I will go back to the human rights approach. Article 47 is very clear on the right to fair administrative action. I don't think 2 years down the line, unless there are really special reasons that warrant such a delay, I really don't think that would be meeting the constitutional threshold. Now, specific to us, especially where a violation has been reported, our service charter is clear that you have to respond to whoever is making that report within 21 days. Now, investigations, the way we approach it impartially, independently. We don't start with an end goal or a fixed result that is anticipated. All we anticipate at the end of it all is remedy for the violations and accountability for the violations as well. So in this specific case, it is the findings that will inform what next steps to take.
Cyrus, you're being
Yes,
so
please.
politically correct.
He's being a
But-
lawyer.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
lawyering you.
You're lawyering up. But here's the thing. In this case,
Yes.
no need of a report. Everything is on video.
Yeah.
Everything is on video. Masked people, essentially firing tear gas at civilians, trying to barricade roads, trying to approach polling stations and enter. That's all caught on video, well documented. I'm sure with, for example, the Nation Media team, they already filed a report at the nearest police station, which I think is all Kalou police station. Fair enough. Eric is asking, when do you summon the OCS and OCPD in charge? What investigations are we doing exactly when everything is on camera? You know?
Yeah.
Genuinely just asking, what investigations are there to do? I mean, if it's a matter of verifying footage, that could take you a day at most to check the metadata and see that indeed this video was shot in All Kalou at 2 p.m. on the 16th. That's it.
So you exactly appreciate that there may be some, processes that would generally amount to investigations. And that's what I was saying. We already have a team. I do not want to speculate because I don't know what their findings would be. When the findings are brought, then it now informs what next steps. Because the findings would be clear. And even when you look at our reports, they are not very generic. They are specific. That in this particular case or in this polling station, this is what happened, these were the violations, and these are the specific recommendations. So it will be equally specific in this case, just like we've always done.
Okay.
And then that is what informs what next steps to take.
Okay, let's give it time. So let me go back now that we need time for investigations. Let me go to another by-election. I could go to Kasipul, I could go to Mbere, or many of the other ward by-elections that we've had over the last few months. Who have you summoned from those areas, someone who's in charge of security, someone who is in the security apparatus, given that we also saw similar violent incidences in Kasipul, in Mbere North. Where else did we see the same? In some wards as well.
Yeah.
So then,
the constituency in Western.
the name is escaping
The
me.
one where our trade unionist was vying.
Oh, Malava.
Is it Malava?
Yes, Malava, Bas, yes. Saw the same thing. So then what action has been taken by the KNCHR since then?
So again, for those by-elections, because I believe they were all held on the same day, for that, what we did was to document. We didn't issue specific summons or summons specifically to any individual. None that I'm aware of, but I know for a fact that the issues were documented and the report has been already made public.
So who is in charge of security at a polling center?
They organize and they have the police providing security in that center.
So
IEBC organizes security.
So who would be the person to hold accountable or to ask questions in the event that there were cases of insecurity or violence at a polling center?
So again, I would go back to the primary duty bearer being the state in this context. So yeah, it would still go back to the state in appreciation of their primary obligation to secure everyone in that context.
So who from the state have you then summoned and asked questions about the security failures during these by-elections?
No, none that I'm aware of. In the context of by-elections, we've not issued specific summons to anyone.
Are you seeing the gap?
There's a very big enforcement gap of and the reason why we're asking all of these questions is because all of these commissions that were put together to be able to deal with different aspects, of matters affecting the public. Yesterday we had the NCIC, we have the Commission on Human Rights, but again the thing that we keep hearing is a report was made public. A report was made public. And the biggest gap that we're seeing is a failure of either enforcement or just an institution that sits, generates reports, and that's it. And reports that, according to me, as Falaris, and this is my opinion, people can easily sit down and commission these reports and put them together without it being a dent to the taxpayers. So at what point do we then proceed past reports and now start actually acting on those reports? Because if like you've rightfully said, the state is not investigating itself, it's not pursuing any kind of legal prosecution of persons involved, then what do commissions such as yours sit and do?
So documentation is important.
It is.
It may not be the ultimate thing, but it's a very good starting point because you must start from a point. And the point is document these violations, even if not immediately. You never know. Maybe someone else can pick that report and action it.
Yes.
And I'm saying that because I've seen our reports used in litigation to support allegations of violations, because they will make certain findings, and those findings can also help in other accountability mechanisms. Reports have also been used for advocacy purposes in demonstrating that clearly there is a problem, clearly there is a trend that needs to change, and also provoking conversations at both legislative and even national level on what exactly needs to be done. So I'm not downgrading them. I'm not saying they are the ultimate thing to do, but I'm just saying that reports are equally important, and depending on how you use them, they may not be the end in itself, but they may be a very necessary means to that end. Again, besides documenting, I've also highlighted those cases where you can even pick those reports and now start demanding accountability. And that is equally important if we approach it from a remedy perspective.
I agree. My pushback is you seem to be nibbling where you can bite, in the sense that you're not pushing this as far as it can go. The reports are a wonderful thing, and we need to keep at it. And you're right, it is important to document every single injustice that happens. But where there is room to do more, you're not doing the more. If you told me that in the cases of Mbeere North, in Malava, in Kasipul, these are the people we summoned, this one ignored a summon, so we took them to court, and now they're being held in contempt of court, and they're being forced to apologize like we've seen before, and things like that, that's a threat. I could be like, okay, you're inconveniencing them as much as they're inconveniencing us. But here it seems there's the opportunity to bite, and you're choosing to nibble with a report as opposed to stretching the full mandate of the KNCHR.
So one of the things is that we are not a direct implementer. All, not just the commission, but all Chapter 15 commissions, but they're basically oversight. And that oversight is a shared responsibility. So each of these institutions will do what they're supposed to do. Part of what we've done is to document and share these reports with different duty bearers, be it the DPP, be it someone else who's supposed to do something different. So the conversation in which I admit we've been engaged in is to how to escalate, how to move it past just reporting and actioning the recommendations. So in terms of actioning the recommendations, it depends on the strategy you choose to adopt. You can meet the different people you are making the specific recommendations to and see what practically needs to be done. That again becomes a responsibility, but it doesn't also stop at that for you. Nothing stops you from constantly following up, and we take up the challenge, and that is something that we have been doing.
Which is what I'm saying. Really, if someone is
your teeth deep enough?
are you? Because let's be honest, if you have room to do something, why not do it? Like stretch, like you said, you do need the ODPP when it comes to prosecution.
Yeah.
You may need IPOA when it comes to investigation.
Yes.
But to issue a summons doesn't require any of these other bodies. If people are let them feel the inconvenience. Let them feel that the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has their eye on them, even as these other things happen.
Yeah.
Like stretch, as opposed to just giving a report.
True.
I'm not trying to prescribe
No,
your
I
work.
get it, I
I'm
get
just,
it,
yeah.
You should.
We are not saying
You're not even prescribing. You're just reminding him of what the job that we've given the commission.
Yes.
And as a public institution, we are open to public scrutiny and receiving feedback from all quarters. But the fact that we've not issued summons specific to the context of by-elections does not mean we've never issued summons.
Okay.
Yes, we have issued summons in the process and in the context of conducting investigations, and required that certain information be provided. Yeah.
So-
So the fact that it has not happened in one context does not
Doesn't
mean that
mean
that
it's not
power
been happening.
has never been exercised by the commission.
Can I flip this a little bit, Cyrus? Now,
Yes, Eric.
tell us from where you sit as a rights advocate. We the people created the commission, right?
Yes.
And we created it and gave it power in the constitution so that it oversights the state and it addresses issues of rights violations. One, of course, of the critical consumers of your report is the people's representative, and that's Parliament, right?
Yes.
And in very many ways, you answer to us through our assembly, Parliament. Do you feel that Parliament has put you on a leash or is trying to curtail the power that we have given you? Or do you feel that Parliament is helping you to do the job that you ought to be doing?
Well, I think one of the things that we have constantly raised is the issue of resources. Because to effectively function as a national human rights institution, and not just ourselves, is not an isolated concern. To function effectively for each of those oversight mechanisms, you need the resources. You need very good resources to conduct proper investigations. Even advocacy itself is a bit resource intensive. So one of the things that has not been adequate is the issue of resources. But even with that challenge, even with the little resources that we have tried. Is that good enough? Maybe not. Can we do more? Of course. With more resources, even better.
Okay. Do you feel that now, with the fact that resources have been used, maybe politically, to try and contain you, do you think that you're bending over and being soft on the state because of that?
No, I don't. I really don't think we are being soft. We are just being true to our mandate. And if our mandate demands that we say certain things, we point out that certain things that are not going right, that is a mandate that we remain committed to. And I'm sure, appreciating and looking at our reports and even the releases that we've been doing, I really wouldn't say that we have really have bent to accommodate any interest, save for the interest of wananchi and their human rights concerns.
Are you not concerned with the increasing number of cases of human rights violations?
We are. And everyone, yes, we are. And it really concerns us. And
so what are you doing about that?
Again, the investigations that we continue to do, and even taking up certain cases before the courts. And also looking at strategic public interest litigation cases, in cases where because we appreciate with our little resources, we may not, and we are not able to represent every other Kenyan that has a human rights violation. So we are also looking at other mechanisms of having some of these violations redressed, including, where possible, taking up public interest litigation cases, setting the jurisprudence right, and ensuring that what we have is actually facilitative of enjoyment of human rights. Something else that we've also actively done is legislative proposals. we appreciate as a national human rights institution, it's not our mandate to legislate. But that does not mean that we cannot give recommendations in terms of what we want to see in the law, to the extent that that law will help facilitate people in enjoyment of their rights and also provide for remedies whenever there are infractions or violations of those rights. So there are a number of things that we continue to do.
I have a feeling, and I can't prove it. You know those things of, I know, but
My
I can't.
spidey senses are
I
tingling.
can't prove it.
The antenna is
But I'll show you
signaling
what is
somewhere.
leading me to think that way. That the public is increasingly losing confidence with the Chapter 15 commissions, yours included. I'll give you an example. Recently, you are compiling names of people who have faced rights violations since the 2017 election, right? Many people came to you, many more than what you had in your reports. Sindio?
Yes.
The fact that they had not come to you before is a clear indication, number one, that A, they are not aware of the work that you do and your mandate, or B, they don't trust you. Okay? Now that they had that there's money, they're like, let me just try.
Yeah.
But they still just don't trust you. And the reason they don't trust is because you have just been producing the reports. You produced a report, which we keep referencing here, of what happened in 2024, for example. You told us how many people you have documented who died. And your report was, we are not just saying people died because someone told us people died. We are saying people died because we verified by going to mortuaries, by looking at hospital records, that these people died as a result of participating in protests. Since then, apart from the report, nothing from the commission.
Well, I wouldn't say nothing, but Eric, I hear you. And
So
I
when people
appreciate the
you
concerns
respond
by
to
the
this.
people.
I respond to it wholesomely. It's such cases.
Yeah.
What happened previously, what happened then, what happened thereafter. If people don't feel the commission coming out to stand in the gap for them, if people don't feel that the commission is actually trying to do its work, but the commission comes out directly and says, Parliament, we need these resources. And you've got to find ways of giving these resources. We have given you a report, DPP, prosecute. All these are reports that Parliament we have on terms of legislative proposals. Act, but you're not acting.
They're just
We'll be
gathering
behind
dust
you.
somewhere.
If we don't do that, we lose confidence, as we have.
So on reporting, it may be due to a number of factors. One, and you've correctly observed this, that maybe they were not aware. We can't say they were, we can't say they were not. But that's a possibility that we can't rule out. The fact that we also made it public and actively sought to hear from these people should also demonstrate that we really are concerned about their issues. Because remember, what we were doing was developing the reparations framework. But we felt it was important that as we develop this framework, can we also have people who can actually benefit from this framework, for the reason that they suffered violations. And that is why we made that call and opened it up for anyone, and also tried, to the extent that was possible, again, with the limited resources that we had, to reach out to these people so that we also cast our net wider, because we can't assume everyone saw that communication. We can't also assume everyone can necessarily visit any of the offices. So that in and of itself could be a pointer that we are still connected to the people, and we are still working for the people, and we still want them to benefit from this process. And that is why there was actually that list. And the numbers that we report, the issues that we raise, of course, have to be verified. So we also engage in that process of confirming, having received these reports, what documentation, if at all any, is available, and how can we verify some of these claims even as we make the pronouncements that we make, and as we take the further steps that we do.
Sorry, Fela, just before you come in, just to finish on, Eric reminded me of something. The last time you were here, Cyrus, you said you would confirm that money had hit the accounts of the compensation victims. Were you able to? Because they said that disbursement was being done by the executive, but you would confirm. Yes?
And it has. And there are victims who've gone, beneficiaries who've actually gone public and confirmed that they've already received this. So that I'm sure it has happened for a fact, and they've spoken themselves on their own initiative, confirming
I
that
wish we had a dashboard to see
Yeah.
how many people have received, in what tiers they are in, and how many are pending. That kind of transparency.
And also appreciate it's a continuous process.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a process that is continuing, but there are some that have already gone public and actually confirmed that they've received.
I usually have a very big problem with processes that are not based on time, because then you run the risk of having a very open, it's like, yeah, it's been going on, it's ongoing. Where's the accountability? Where's the transparency? I think time-based processes are very important. As a country, we've seen how, say, legal matters can drag on for so long, and at what point, by the time you're picking up the pieces, you cannot make full understanding of what the situation was. Just listening to you and a lot of the other commissions, all we keep hearing is, yeah, we are doing this, but you can hear a very silent, I wish we had a lot more power to do this. What do you think, what mandate constraints do you think the commission, not you think, but the commission would prefer if it didn't have?
I would speak more to resources than the mandate, because you see the law is our mandate is very wide. There is that sweeping or very general clause that you can do any other thing that is necessary for the attainment of human rights. So it's also a question of how liberally we interpret our mandate. But it's one thing to have the mandate, and a very important, equally important, if not more important thing, to have the resources to effectively discharge that mandate.
If all resources are provided,
yes,
the commission would be able to fully execute its mandate.
It should.
It should.
It should.
But
then remember, in terms of accountability, I keep saying it's not an isolated contribution. There are different actors who necessarily have to do their part. If the state does what it's supposed to do, most of these things would actually be resolved.
Correct.
If citizens also, because we also have cases of citizens violating the rights of their fellow citizens.
Yes.
Where's the biggest letdown?
Who's the weakest link?
Who's your weakest link? Because right now, the reason I was leading to that is the commission is doing its work, it's releasing the reports, it's verifying, and then that's supposed to be passed on to other stakeholders. Where's the weakest link?
A number of actors, again, would come into play.
Who are they?
Let's start with the most recent, the compensation. We are not the ones actually effecting the payments. So you see that responsibility and that obligation is on someone else. We've done our bit, which I believe, and Kenyans can give us feedback. We tried to the best we could. We got the framework in place. We got the list also in place. And we also made other recommendations way beyond the current phase of compensation. So how do we pick it up and also actualize some of those other recommendations? There were recommendations of development of legislation. That would be necessarily going to the legislative arm of the government. In terms of setting aside resources, that would be the state. But more importantly, we also need to look at to what extent shall we constantly keep setting aside resources to facilitate compensation for otherwise avoidable violations. So again, that takes us back to what needs to change. So it's much wider than just one actor. And it's possible that you can do your bit and do it quite well, but you also need these other actors to equally do their part very nicely, so that cohesively and harmoniously the country moves to a place where we can all enjoy our rights.
The call-out is important.
I agree.
Yeah.
And we did go into that bit about this cycle of compensate, do bad, compensate, do bad, compensate, the last time you were here. But I wanted to zoom out a bit, and Julius Rono says, I'm surprised that this morning not a single person has blamed IEBC over the results of Kalou. That means the problem lies elsewhere by other actors outside polling stations. Tuanze kutafakari. And it speaks to the kind of distrust that we're sold as far as our institutions are concerned. That's what I wanted to zoom out and get a feel on. Essentially, how do we restore public confidence in our independent institutions? There's several of them, but it seems there's always someone either tarnishing their name or they bark but don't bite enough, and then we get discouraged and we're like, hata watafanya kazi yao, ama hata. We're kind of stuck in a very toxic cycle.
Perceptions are not easy to handle. That's my first observation.
Yes.
But even with that, I think sometimes it could be that the people do not know what actually these institutions are doing. That's a possibility that we can roll out. So an element of public engagement, explaining to the people what you're doing, even when you're doing it on their behalf, they may not be fully aware of what you're doing. But also being actively in the practical realization of these rights, because the citizens, and we've correctly observed, are more interested in, at the end of the day, what does that translate into for me as a citizen?
Yes.
If you have a law that is essentially meant to protect me as a citizen, at the end of the day, is it implemented, and do I get that practical benefit that law was meant to confer to me as a citizen?
True.
So moving it into something more tangible, something more practical, but also engaging that citizen for them to appreciate what you are doing, and breaking it in a manner that we all get to understand and appreciate.
Which again comes into, again, this constitution, unlike the other one of 1963, this didn't come, haikuja na meli. Hii tulijitengenezea sisi wenyewe. We wrote it ourselves, It was a whole process. Yashpal Gai and the civil society went to the country and picked opinions, consolidated into a huge, voluminous reports that were discussed at Bomas. There was a disagreement in Bomas. All the way to 2010, we can actually say that Kenyans gave themselves this constitution. And we created these commissions. And we created an institution called Parliament, and the executive, and the judiciary. And we allocated responsibilities for them and said, you shall check each other. You have a leash on the other one, but that leash does not go beyond here. Like that. When they fail, we should ask ourselves, why are they failing? And I always keep saying, the Parliament is the weakest link in the democracy of the Republic of Kenya is the people that we send into that august house. They are the most useless people that we end. As in, it's like we go and look for the worst candidates, and we give them the job.
You've qualified by virtue of being useless.
Because you're the most useless, we give you the job. That's what we've done, and I hope we shall change. I want to look at, what has been happening lately, and the concern that has been raised even by the Kofi Annan Foundation. And the Kofi Annan Foundation is important here because 2007, Kofi Annan himself and how he ended up here. At that time, after the post-election violence, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights produced a report that was even being quoted by Louis Moreno Ocampo at The Hague. What was the title of that report? The Brink of the Precipice. On the Brink of a Precipice. Wow. It said Kenya had gone right there. We were right there at the edge. One small push, even by a gust of wind, and it would have gone overboard. It was that chilling, that report. Now, here we are again, and we are seeing a repeat of what the Commission had actually identified as a thing that were happening before the election. There was organization of small groupings politically, and then they start clashing with one another. There was, this vigilantization of the state. So we become vigilantes here and there. So by the time 2007 December was actually erupting, it's those groups that erupted. We're here again, right? Is the Commission concerned about what we saw, for example, yesterday? And we discussed this earlier. People came out, and the people were saying people came out to protect their vote. This was a direct response to a call by the political leadership, who said, hatuendi nyumbani, tutakaa hapo to protect our vote, right? This basically is the political Nini saying, we are not leaving. We shall stand and protect our vote. I was raising the concern earlier and saying, this is dangerous because you will end up with everybody saying we are not leaving.
Yeah.
And they will stop being outside the school. They'll get into the school compound.
Yes.
Next, they'll enter into the classroom and say we are not leaving.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that? Is this a positive thing that we saw yesterday? Because those will argue, as a result of the people staying vigilant, the sanctity of their vote was protected yesterday.
I think for me, it's a confidence question, confidence in the institution that are mandated to do the different roles that they are supposed to discharge. And if the people have confidence in these institutions, then you should cast your ballot and go home at peace, knowing that my vote counts, my choice will be respected at the end of it all. So for me, the focus should be on how best can we achieve that? How can we build this confidence in these institutions? Because as you've painted that picture, you can imagine if everyone does that. So do you vote and stay there? Or what do you do? And at this point, what is the role of those other actors in terms of securing that ballot? And not just the ballot itself, but that freedom of choice that citizen has made. How does it ultimately reflect in the final outcome? So for me, it's a question of the confidence that the public have in these institutions and what needs to be done to build that confidence, which we've fortunately highlighted.
Cyrus, asante sana for joining us today. You'll come again soon.
Nashukuru.
I hope you'll not be coming again for us to ask you the same questions. What is the commission doing? What has the commission done? And getting the same answer. But Cyrus Maweo is the director and head of redress and legal affairs at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Asante sana for tuning in to Fixing the Nation this week. We'll be back next week. So we understand shortly Rigiji will be addressing a press conference in Nyahururu town.
Yes.
And then kick off
Thank you, Tua.
Thank you to
Thank you.
Thank you.
Several
stops.
Kombeloto Kalou. Asanteni sana.
Can we bet the number of times Rigiji is going to say the name William Ruto?
Actually,
Anasema Kasongo.
Kasongo.
William Ruto.
Where Kasongo?
See, on like 200 times.
Do a push up every time you hear Kasongo.
Yeah.
You'll be bored.
By the time we come back here, man.
Yeah.
But isn't it a good thing that it's gone the way it's gone, and there have been, especially for me, conceding defeat?
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, it's a sign of acknowledging that.
Yes. Things will get tighter in the future. The margins will be smaller.
Yeah.
And that's where now people start saying, it was just 200 votes. I can't concede. Yeah, kulikuwa na ukora. Anyway, have a lovely weekend.
The confidence.
Yes.
For weekend. See you guys on Monday. Coming right up is we have Brenda, Selly, and Claudia on 96.3 Nation FM, and then we have Your World, Leonie Friday Dunda. Your weekend playlist. Funga laptop weekend imeanza. Catch you guys on Monday.